Hey guys, what's up? Shadowlands back for another video. Today I wanted to talk about the new game Overwatch that has come out. It is the hot topic of gaming right now, so I wanted to do a review on the game and answer the big question that's buzzing around forums, my comment section, my messenger, the Facebook group. Everyone's been asking this question. Can Blizzard make a good FPS? Is this game good? So I want to go over some pros and cons of the game, some things to note, and my overall consensus of the game after having played it since its release. I also dabbled a bit in the beta, so I've had a good amount of time to experience the game, get my thoughts together, and I wanted to share those with you guys today. So first of all, we're going to go over the good stuff, the pros, and what is done well with this game. First of all, I want to say it has a fantastic system of strengths and weaknesses of each character. The counters are very well designed, like rock, paper, scissors. You have certain characters that are super strong against a bunch of characters, but then super weak against a bunch of really commonly played characters. So there's a little bit of a way off there. There are some characters that people will inherently want to play more, like Reaper and Widowmaker and Tracer. Those characters are going to be played more because they're easier to play and stand more true to a traditional FPS game, and they feel more like you're playing an FPS as opposed to an RPG. Whereas if you walk in with Reinhardt, you're going to be saying, okay, this isn't so much of an FPS anymore. I'm running around with a giant hammer. I don't really have a gun, so I have to treat this like an RPG, more like League of Legends or such, than an FPS. So depending on how you play the game with a different character, you're going to be changing playstyles a lot. And so a lot of characters that are coming in and play more like an FPS people are going to lean more towards those if they're coming into the game because they love FPSs. People that play RPGs, like League of Legends and more often, are going to be more inclined, let's say, to go use characters like Reinhardt and Junkrat, and ones that don't play so much like FPS characters, and they're more support characters. So that being said, continuing on, I want to talk about the fact that we have a ridiculous variety of heroes from day one. I am very impressed by Blizzard's ability to put out this many unique, exciting, intricate, interesting characters from day one. I love Tracer's Aussie accent. I love Junkrat's design with his hair and how he's just sort of like all over the place. I love Reinhardt's like, I am the Stonewall, super awesome guy character. I absolutely love all of the different character designs. They're very interesting. I think that's really cool. And the fact that we're going to be seeing a lot more of them as free DLC, all DLC for this game will be free, as Blizzard has already announced. The fact that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these characters really, really excites me. I'm hoping to see at least maybe 4 to 5 new characters per year and maps to go with them. Continuing, I like the way the game fundamentally works. It is very fast-paced, it's quick to get back into the action after you die, gives you just enough time to switch out between characters, make your adjustments, and get back into the fight. I think that's very, very well done. It's actually harder than you guys think to get a game that flows that fluidly. It was difficult for League of Legends to get that at the start. If you guys remember back to when the game released, it was difficult to get that into flow, and I think they've done a really great job from day one, which I have to give them massive props for. Next up, and this is just simply, the graphics are beautiful. I love the way it looks. It's very inviting. It's good for casual and competitive gameplay. It doesn't feel like it's over cluttered. It just feels good. And I'm just going to leave it at that. There's nothing else I can say to better encompass that feeling. Next up, I just want to talk about how the game is overall very balanced for a day one game. For a very early release, a lot of games that come out, there will be characters that are horribly overpowered or horribly underpowered. And while there are certain abilities of characters that I feel like need some tweaking, overall design and use of each individual character is very fluid. It feels good. It feels like there's not one character that everyone plays because they're broken as all hell, or that they don't play because they're broken as all hell in the opposite direction. I feel like every character is fairly balanced overall. There's certain things that I would tweak about each character, but nothing that I would drastically change about any given one. And any small tweaks and balances will happen in DLC and hotfixes to come, so I'm not too concerned about how that works as a whole. I'm very pleased with the game overall. Now, I have a good list of cons and what needs to change, but note that before I even go into these, they're pretty minute. A lot of these aren't that big of a deal. The only one that I find a really big deal is the one I'm going to mention first. The amount of objective-based gameplay is too limited. There's really just capture and attack, defend, and escorting an object. That's really what the entire game is, and there's a pretty limited number of maps to even do that on. Now, those maps are very well designed, I think, but the fact that we don't have that much to actually do is kind of boring. I wish they would put in like 10 or so different modes. I feel like 10 to 12 modes is a really good sweet spot for what you're trying to do. Now, with League of Legends, where you're literally just doing one thing, like there is no other mode, you're just doing the one thing, that's okay, because that is the game. But here they're clearly trying to have a couple of different modes, a couple of different objectives. It'd be cool if they could do more than that. If you guys remember a game called Brink, and also a game by Nexon called Dirty Bomb, it was very similar to that, where you have these different characters where you play as a class as opposed to a character with certain weapons and such, and you play with a hero almost. And the idea is that you go after these objectives, and the gameplay is very, very similar to what they're doing here in Overwatch, where you have an objective and the way the game plays out. it just feels the same. And I think it was done very well in those other games, but those just didn't pick up traction the way that Overwatch did, partially due to advertising. However, I just feel like with a game like this where they want to have multiple kinds of objectives, we need to have different ones. It would be cool if we had an objective where we had to go and destroy certain things, just like in League of Legends, where you have to go and destroy the tower and you have to fight your way to it. There could be a couple of different ways to do that. There could be one giant temple or one giant building you have to destroy. Or you could have a bunch of different little ones around like a city area, and you could have the enemy spawning in various points to cut you off. That would be really cool as well. Not to mention, you could also do as like a search and destroy sort of thing, where, yeah, the idea is you have to get to a place, plant a bomb, and make sure that bomb explodes. That would be really cool too, sort of like a CSGO sort of perspective on that. There's a lot of things you could do, but I'd like to see them implement more modes, I guess you could say, or more objectives than just the ones that we have now, because these are going to get very boring very fast, and I'm afraid that they're going to start losing player base if they don't introduce more stuff to it. Now, the next thing is that there's not a lot of incentive for people to try out new characters once you fall into a certain playstyle. If you play very offensively, you're going to be stuck with Reaper, Widowmaker, Genji, and a few players like that. You're not going to have a lot of incentive to go play Reinhardt or go play Reinhardt, however you pronounce his name. You're not going to have a lot of incentive to go play Junkrat. You're not going to have a lot of incentive to go play Mai or Diva. You're not going to have a lot of incentive to go play all these other awesome characters. You're going to fall into a playstyle and play with some specific ones. Now, that's okay. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I feel like some people may get more out of the game if they have the chance to go and play a bunch of different heroes. It would be cool if they gave more of an incentive to play different heroes other than just, oh, they're different and they're fun and they're kind of cool. That's really not a good enough reason. You need to have, like, other reasons to go and play. And honestly, I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure Blizzard could come up with something, to be honest. Now, some characters' abilities feel a bit too overpowered. For example, and this is the best one I've got, is Reaper's teleport distance. Reaper can teleport practically across the entire visible map. If you can see something, you can teleport to it. That's ridiculous. You need to have a much more concise feel for that. The thing is, Reaper's teleport should be used to get across a line of enemy fire that you can't normally get across. Now, I get the idea that you do want to have some distance on that to be useful, so you can actually go further than you would if you were to normally run to that area. It's also a great way to advance on foes that way, but it needs to be cut back to about 3/4 of its current length. You can still get from behind one wall to another place without running into enemy fire using that distance, but the way that it is now is ridiculous. And there's a bunch of different little abilities like this that I feel like could be using some reining in, or could use a bit of a buff for that same reason. Now, is this going to break the game? Not really, but it's something that probably should be re-looked at again. So just stuff like that. Next up, team shooting is not as effective as it should be. It's not that hard to take on two people at once and win, even if they're both facing you. Even characters that are counters against you, for the most part, aren't that difficult to, you know, clear out if you just play well. And I feel like we need to have some more characters that are like, okay, it's harder to take on more than one person at once. Some characters are designed for that. Like Reaper is designed for the sole purpose of walking in, clearing out 2 or 3 people, dying, and then trying again. That is the reason Reaper was created. Hence, it's sort of in his character name when he dies and says, I'm reborn again, or something like that. It's in his character to walk in, die, do damage, all that shit, walk out, and do it again. That's his point. But a lot of characters are able to do that when I feel like they shouldn't be able to do that. And I feel like that's kind of broken at the moment. That needs to be, I don't really know how you would balance that, but that needs to be switched up. Whether it's a basic statistics point of view, or just the amount of damage that characters are able to do and take compared to other characters. So that needs to be fixed up. Next up, the regular melee attacks. I have a bit of a beef with how these work. Currently, if you hit someone as Tracer and you hit someone as Reinhardt with a basic melee attack, from what I can tell at least, you're doing the same amount of damage. That doesn't make any sense. If a skinny, frail girl punches you in the face, it's not going to do anywhere near as much damage as getting hit by a fucking dump truck, which is Reinhardt. So my point is, for basic melee attacks, those need to be balanced out. Reinhardt's melee should be doing a crap load more damage than Tracer's. If the two of them punch each other, Reinhardt should be doing well over double the damage that Tracer is doing. That just seems a little bit broken to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do different amounts of damage, but from my experimentation, that is not the case. So that needs to be railed in, and I think that's something that absolutely needs to change. Next up, and actually my final big point, is that a lot of ultimate abilities rely too much on follow-up attacks to be useful on their own. My favorite example of this is Tracer, where if you throw her bomb and you're too close, it will kill you too. It explodes very quickly and has a large blast radius. It relies on you to still have some of your dashes to get forward and backwards and move around really well, to walk up, drop that thing, and then back out. But assuming you've been using your abilities, you may not have those at your disposal. And maybe that's just a case of bad planning, but I don't feel like super abilities should rely too much on your other abilities. If you look at a game like Destiny, which heavily relies on super abilities as well, especially in competitive play, the only one that really relies on your overall abilities is the Sunsinger, and that's because what it does, it turns you into a superhuman tank that allows you to simply use your abilities more often. So that's kind of in the name of the game there. But every other super in the game does not have anything to do with your other abilities. You can use it solely on its own and it will perform. That is the way that works. And quite honestly, I really feel like this game needs to see that too, where you don't see almost any reliance on your other abilities to use your super. I just feel like that's kind of not fair almost. It's like you've trained up and used your super, you've spent all your time charging it up, you should be able to just simply use it. And that's really how it should be, at least in my opinion. Some things to note now, moving past the pros and the cons, just some things to note is that you're going to see people tend to fall in love with a set of characters and never want to stray away from them. Now, I talked on this a little bit earlier when I said people fall into a certain playstyle, but that's different from what I'm talking about now. I'm saying they will fall in love with a few certain characters, where you'll have people that just want to play Widowmaker, Genji, Soldier 76, and Reaper, because they're all very offensive players, and they're characters that they started out playing the game with, and they don't ever want to go try something new. You're going to see people like that, and like, fundamentally, that's not a problem, but this means that if a team needs a healer or a support or a tank, it's really common that nobody will switch to those roles. Everyone loves offensive and builder characters in general, and they will not go and switch to a different class just because they play so totally differently from the characters they're used to. And while that may be a good thing to have people that like specialize, like I am the best Reinhardt I can be, or I am the best Bastion I can be, or I am the best Soldier 76, that's great if you have a team that you consistently play with that has a full team setup that consistently works well together. However, for playing just quick matches, that can be a real damper on a team's chance to win or lose, because if you don't have someone who's willing to play Reinhardt, you're going to have a lot of trouble trying to get past someone who uses a fast character like Tracer and such, so you're going to have a little bit more trouble with stuff like that. And classes like Reaper and stuff that do a lot of damage, Reinhardt's super important. Same with characters like Bastion that can hold down a spot. If you don't have characters that can hold down a spot, well, you're going to be in trouble and you have to defend a point. That's kind of important. Anyway, the overall consensus of my thoughts of the game, it's really, really good. The areas that need fixing are minute at best. Keep in mind, even though I went over a lot of cons, they're all pretty minute. None of them are really outstandingly bad with the game. They're just things that should probably be tweaked or fixed at some point. And the game really shines in both the FPS and the RPG community. It flows like League of Legends, but it maintains the objective-based shooter-style gameplay of Counter-Strike. It has both the ability to be a casual shooter that anyone can pick up and play and have fun with, or the ability to be hyper-competitive and more methodical. Games that can do that are really beautiful, and you do not see a lot of those today. They're either games that focus explicitly on competitive gameplay because that's the market they want to target, or they focus on really casual gameplay because that's the market they want to target. And you don't see a lot of games that try to do both, and even the ones that do both don't often do it well. This game does a fantastic job of doing that very, very well. Anyway, in my books overall, Overwatch gets a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's only losing points for some balancing issues and playability at the time being, and I feel like those are going to change, and that rating will go up to a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. Anyway, it doesn't feel like the kind of game that you could grind endlessly as well, which is kind of what I was hoping it would be for. It gets boring after 3 to 5 games. I can't find myself sitting there for 10 games straight. I can't find myself justifying that. Whereas I know some people probably could, but the majority of people aren't going to be able to want to sit here and play this for a super long time, where you could sit down with League of Legends and play that quite literally all night. And perhaps that's because there's only a couple of different objectives in this game, and it feels like you're repeating the same 2 to 3 things over and over, whereas League of Legends, you're sitting there and you know what you're getting into. You're sitting down to do this one thing, over and over, and to do this one thing really well. Whereas in this game, it feels like you're trying to do a couple of different things, but you're not getting a lot of either one. So it just feels like you're just sort of sitting there doing the same thing over and over and over. That's my overall consensus of the game. It's really fun. I love this game. Highly recommend everyone to pick it up. Fantastic game, and I look forward to playing with some of you guys. You're welcome to add me on PSN. I will add my IGN down below, and you guys can add me, hit me up for a game, and I will see you guys in the next video. Shadowlands out.
I've touched you in my sights. Show them what you can do. Everyone heal up. Thanks. Armor up. I will come. got you in my sights. Everyone, heal up.
The payload is approaching its destination.
I've got you in my sights. Knock me down and I'll keep getting back up. Armor up! Thanks. Biotic field activated. Check my turret! Yuga wakateki wo kurau! Death walks among you. See that which is seen from the shadows. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Death comes. Die, die, die. I've got you in my sights.
60 seconds remaining.
Much better.
Suiting up.
This is my curse. My arrow flies
10 seconds
from the shadows. Die, die, die.
play of the game.